Dispatch was obviously a bit of a sleeper hit recently, and it's definitely reinvented the wheel when it comes to Telltale-style games. It's got a bunch of celebrity gamer voice actors, it's got non-stop cussing and nudity, but it never sacrifices an all-around feel-good story just to be dark, which is something that lots of superhero properties struggle with today. And it's hard to critique a story like this because my story was inevitably significantly different from anybody else's by a pretty wide margin, but I like that. I like that even though Invisigal ends up being a traitor, your choices can make it so that the story doesn't end as a bummer. And that's the whole point of this game. Robert is kinda your oyster, and you can make him any type of character that you want. For example, you can make him ultra cynical and be with Invisigal because his personality aligns with her. You can make him optimistic and put him with Blonde Blazer, but my favorite way of playing, personally, is trying to follow your own established rules for the character, while still trying to get the best ending. Also, this is your reminder to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You've subbed to channels worse than this one, so please don't make a brother beg. Personally, I usually had Robert saying a bunch of corny lines because I'm a Superman truther, so of course I have a corny reading on what it means to be a hero. Similarly, I told the Z team I'm Mecha Man because heroes don't lie to their team. I trusted Invisigal even though her story made no sense because after all of her actions throughout the game, I didn't believe that she'd fully sell all of us out. And best of all, even though I had Robert be a cornball who believes the best in people and wants to be the perfect hero, I still had him pursue Invisigal because I figured he knows what she's capable of as a hero. You can have this blending of cornball and hornball. You can have a blend of optimism and cynicism. In stuff like The Boys and Invincible, you only get a hefty dose of one of those options, and it definitely leans towards the hornball cynicism route, which is why I'm so glad that if you actually try and aren't having a stroke while using your controller or keyboard and mouse, you can have the hornball moments, you can romance whoever you like, you can be a smart mouth cynic, and you can still save the day, and I love that, I truly do. Not to mention that Dispatch is just a truly well-made game in general. I know there's a lot of talk about the choices and cutscenes and stuff, which is definitely the meat of the game and what people are falling in love with, but I do think the actual gameplay loop that you get each episode is something far too slept on. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't reinvent the wheel, but the actual job of dispatching superheroes is truly a blast. Not only is it fun to make educated guesses on each mission in general, but you get to hear a healthy dose of banter between all the Z-teamers, which is a lot of fun. And obviously the gameplay and upgrade system is pretty good, even if a little bit underdeveloped. I mean, you can become a max rank dispatcher by like episode 3 or 4, it's not very hard at all, especially if you know what you're doing. Even though there's a lot of well-known voice actors in the game, I do think that everyone goes out of their way not to make it just feel like a gimmick or anything like that. If you pick Sonar to cut instead of Coupe, Moist Critical will genuinely play a deuter antagonist of the game. And the only criticism I have here is that for obvious reasons, it does make Coupe and or Sonar feel less connected to the team because it's twice as much work to include them in any scene. As for the other characters, I think all of them get just enough to be well-rounded. Punch Up gets to be ticked off that you fired Coop and is kind of the comic relief without any real motivations or anything like that. Malevola is strangely the easiest to get along with on the entire team because she's kinda just a normal chick who has a demon tail and red skin. Flambe, even though he's quite the hothead, has an accent I can never get tired of and lines that are consistently funny while being the best example of zero to hero on the entire team, as he really starts off as a villain of the week before becoming a superhero. I'm actually really invested in Flambe's story by the end of the game. Golem is just a rock guy, but he's again easy to get along with and never does anything that makes him seem unchill. He's kinda just a G. Waterboy is a nervous wreck who proves that if you put your heart in the right place, you can help somehow. And Phenomenon is the only Superman archetype in recent years that isn't just an evil version of him. I actually enjoy the idea that our depressed Superman is pretty much on the same level as a team of villains, and I'm actually pretty confident when I say that Homelander would probably beat the brakes off of Phenomenon, which is funny to me. This is only really going off of his performance at the end of the game. Prism is probably one of my favorites, not because of her behavior, but because of her outfit, voice acting, and overall power set, though I will say she's likely the most shallow, even surpassing Punch Up. And obviously Invisigal is a love interest, but is also the most difficult character to swing over to the hero side of things, and again, there are numerous points where her stories don't add up, or it's kinda obvious she's lying. But I found that giving her a chance or two to do the right thing got me a pretty good ending. Probably the most controversial thing I'll talk about though is Blonde Blazer. Don't get me wrong, I'm not on the Blonde Blazer hate train or anything, I actually liked her a lot throughout the story, especially when she rescues Robert in episode 7, but I also for some reason and kept feeling like she was going to be a twist villain instead of Invisigal. And I never really felt that she and Robert had a very close connection, which is why I ended up pursuing Invisigal anyway. But now that I know she's just a normal superhero, I kinda wish that more of her character bended towards or even away from Robert. But all of the conversations I had with her felt pretty shallow. So I like her as a character, but she never said anything that made me feel like she was on the up and up. And of course, we can't get through a video about Dispatch without talking about Chase. Another phenomenal character, played by one of my favorite actors out there, Jeffrey Wright. I like Chase a lot as a funny character with a sad story who can smell BS from a mile away. I know it's a common archetype, but I think it shines here. And I'm especially glad he didn't die saving Invisigal. Again, you can keep that realness and grimness without being an unnecessary bummer. Royd is pretty similar, where I could easily see him being killed off, but it'd just be unnecessary. You can still have a story as real as this one without having people die constantly, which is something I think The Boys is forgetting. The stakes are always about whether or not the Z-Team can become a group of superheroes rather than villains. And most of what we care about across the entire game has something to do with that, and I'm grateful. But what about Robert himself? Well, it's tough to judge a character that literally everyone gets a say on. If anything, I'll say that Jesse Pinkman does a terrific job of voicing him, somehow always coming off as a little annoyed, a little depressed, a little whatever you want to project onto the character. But no matter how you play the game, Mecha Man is always going to have a big mouth with the brains and dedication to back it up. Because his character is all about helping others, you get the idea that he truly is one of the best representations of superheroes out there. He burnt through all of his money to do it, he sacrificed his suit to do it, and he definitely sacrificed his life to do it. And like I've said before, you can have this slightly corny archetype for a hero without sacrificing the fact that Robert is a hornball. He's kind of a douche sometimes and has very real vices and moments where he's not at his strongest. It's why we're in control of him specifically instead of someone like Chase or Blonde Blazer, because when we make a mistake, it just reflects as Robert making a mistake, which isn't something unusual in a story like this. But by the end, you really feel like you've accomplished everything you've set out to. You've romanced someone at SDN, you've gotten the entire Z-Team to be competent enough to save LA from Shroud and his goons, and you've even become Mecha Man again. And what seals the deal for me in Robert's character is that while he starts out doing this just to be Mecha Man again, I really believe that if he could press a button to make the Z-Team the best superheroes ever, but give up being Mecha Man, he might actually do it. Because becoming Mecha Man again is often secondary to doing what he can to bring the team together. That's not even to mention the quality of life things in this game. Like, I don't think anyone expected some of the action scenes to be better than anything in Invincible and things like that. Although if I have a tiny nitpick, I'd rather most of the quick time events be saved for smaller actions so you can enjoy the spectacle of a fight more, without having to look at a button prompt every second. But still, the action and choreography in this game is fantastic, which only compounds the strong dialogue and character work. Again, I only have one tiny problem with the game. Shroud as a villain is pretty boring. It doesn't feel like much is done with Robert's father and his relationship with Shroud outside the very beginning and end of the game, and I'm not gonna lie, Shroud does not have nearly enough charisma to be the only real antagonist of the story. I'm not saying he's not played well, I just think he could definitely use more time in the sunshine because we don't really know anything about this guy and we've got no reason to truly hate him by the end of the game. Which is why, true to my word earlier, I did end up sparing him. Even if Shroud killed Invisigal, she was a traitor by this point, so it's like, do something actually cool, you know? Like, I have no temptation to kill this guy at all. Especially because he's one of those villains who supposedly knows what's going to happen next, but can't calculate which vial contains the right power source at the end. No shade to this game at all, but Shroud's kinda lame. Especially because he virtually disappears for over 5 episodes. But again, it's got nothing to do with his performance, I just think he lacks a little bit of presence in terms of his dialogue and how much he's actually in the story. Also, and again, this is such a tiny thing, but I do wish there was an option for a downloadable 4K version of the game. The 720p messes with me after a while, not gonna lie. Other than that, you've got a tightly written and choreographed, well-cast and acted story about superheroes that has an engaging gameplay loop and characters. I'm really glad that I spent my money on this game because I'm more than willing to get another story or two out of it, and I enjoy supporting games like this. And if I'm being honest, it's truly a great experience. 8.5 out of 10. Couldn't ask for much more. And before I end the video, I've been thinking a lot lately about which superhero universe has the best hero names outside of Marvel and DC. Right now, I'm of the opinion that the Incredibles universe takes the cake, but I actually really like most of the hero names in the Dispatch universe. So if you can think of any cool hero names off the top of your head, I'd be really interested to hear them. Other than that, I appreciate you making it to this point in the video. If you enjoy talking about video games, movies, TV shows, and superheroes and stuff, you should absolutely like the video and subscribe to the channel. You've subbed to channels worse than this one, like I said. Also, I saw YouTube introduce something called hype points. I don't really know what those are or how that works, but it can't hurt if you give me some, so, please do that. Or not, that's fine. Play nice, people.